It's a classic urban legend, but in this case, it's true. The story of the vanishing hitchhiker has haunted people for decades, and one man encountered this terrifying phenomenon firsthand. One late evening, a man was driving along a desolate road far from town. As he passed a dark stretch of highway, he noticed a young woman standing on the side of the road hitchhiking. She looked cold and desperate. She thanked him and got into the car, explaining she was trying to get to a nearby town. They drove in silence for a while, but as they passed an old cemetery, the woman suddenly went quiet, staring out the window with an unreadable expression. Eventually, they reached her destination. She thanked him and vanished into the night. The man drove off, but a strange thought lingered in his mind. He had never seen her enter a house or a building. Later at a gas station, he asked the locals about the woman. One of them turned pale. "That's impossible," the gas station attendant said. "She's been dead for years. We bury her every few months, but she never seems to stay in the grave." It's the shadow that shouldn't be there, but somehow, it always is. This is a true story of a man who rented an apartment that became a living nightmare. He was looking for a fresh start, but what he didn't know was that the apartment he rented had a history, one filled with tragedy and violence. The first few weeks were uneventful until he started noticing something strange, shadows, and they weren't right. At first it was just a flicker, small, quick shadows that would disappear when he turned around, but over time the shadows grew darker, lingering longer. They seemed to move on their own, creeping across walls and floors, and sometimes they took the shape of a figure, a tall, menacing shape. One night he woke to the sound of slow, heavy breathing. His blood ran cold when he turned to see a shadowy figure standing at the foot of his bed. He bolted from the apartment and never returned. He later discovered that the previous tenants had died under mysterious circumstances, and that others had experienced the same unnerving presence. Imagine being woken in the middle of the night by a phone call. It's not unusual until you realize there's no one on the other end. This happened to a woman one night, and the experience left her questioning everything. There was no one on the other end, just silence. She listened for a few seconds before hanging up, but the phone rang again, and again, and again. She tried to call the number back, but it went to voicemail. The calls continued for hours, always in the dead of night, always silent. Eventually she moved away, but the calls didn't stop. The calls still come. To this day. No message, no sound, just the chilling silence that haunts her every night.